Hello and welcome to another episode of Veritas Live. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Johnny King. I will be your new host, taking things forward from where our previous hosts left off. A huge shout out to those that paved the way, my colleagues, my predecessors, my friends. As always, we are here to talk about the most top of mind, most requested technology topics from experts from our industry. And I'm excited to dig into these topics, dig into these conversations, and I really look forward to your participation in the comments below. I am coming at you live from Orlando, Florida, in my home office, home of sunshine and alligators, and of course, Disney World as well. I want to know where you are watching from. We've got viewers from all over the globe. Let us know where you're dialing in from, where you're viewing from, and what you love about where you are. I'd love to give you a shout out as well. Speaking about viewers from across the globe, today's show is talking about partnering toward a sustainable future. And before I introduce our guests, I want to remind everybody to join the conversation. Add questions, add comments in the chat below. Use the hashtag VeritasLive. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from your deep and rich, incredibly great perspective. So jump in. I'd love to field some of those questions as well. Now, on to the good stuff. With us today, we have Natasha Tuck. I'm incredibly grateful to have her, the Director of Sustainability and ESG at VMware. That's environmental, social, and governance, if those come up later in the conversation, as well as our very own Veritas's Lisa Erickson, the Senior Director of Product Management and Sustainability champion here. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And when I'm thinking about sustainability, when I'm thinking about the environment, I feel like I take a lot of my cues from music, entertainment, music, movies, art, and specifically music. I'm curious, what pumps you up? What gets you out of bed? What got you prepared for this interview today? Lisa, I'm going to pass it off to you first.
Of course, you're going to pick me first, right? So, let's see. My favorite band is Radiohead. So, yeah. Now, I can't say that I went and did a bunch of research on Radiohead and sustainability, but knowing them, and I'm guessing you're filled up with fun facts, you're going to somehow be able to make the correlation for me, because I can't. But that's what pumps me up, is if you're talking about music.
Natasha, what about you?
Yeah, for me, so sustainability is so much about change and taking action and a movement. So I'm going to pick Rise Up by Andra Day. That is my current favorite.
I love it. And Lisa, I'm going to take ownership and say, yes, I'm full of facts. I didn't just get this in the comments, but yes, Tom York and Radiohead have been at the forefront of environmental activism since the band's debut. So what a wonderful choice. Just so happens that was your pick, so I love it. All right, so before we get started, Natasha, I'm going to just come at this from the ground level. I'm going to be learning a lot from you. Lisa, I'm going to be learning a lot from you as well. I don't want anybody to fall off the buzzword bandwagon. I know that these are important topics for all of us as individuals, organizations, wherever it may be. But I want to hear from you in your own words, Natasha. What do you mean when you say sustainability, and also can you define net zero? Maybe give us a foundational overview of those two topics.
Sure. Okay, great questions and big questions. So I'll start with sustainability, just for clarification, because at VMware, we used to talk about sustainability as kind of our overall ESG, so environmental, social, and governance. Now we have formed our ESG office to provide this clarification that ESG umbrella is everything. So think not only environment, but also social, DEI, et cetera. And then sustainability is that environmental pillar. Yeah. So I'm responsible for the environmental sustainability at VMware, and that's in terms of our operations as well as our supply chain. The responsible sourcing team leads that, but I partner closely with them. So when it comes to net zero, I mean, frankly, those two terms are nearly synonymous these days, sustainability and net zero, because if you're doing sustainability, chances are, well, we all need to head there. Yeah. So we all need to get to net zero in order to thrive on this planet. So, and what it means, to be frank, is the definition is constantly evolving. Yeah. So at VMware, currently we're a carbon neutral company. And what this means is that, without getting into too many technical details, that we cover a good portion of our footprint. So this is in alignment with the carbon neutral protocol. But I think most of us at least know that our carbon footprint is composed of many things. And the current guidance for carbon neutral certification is to cover some of that. Net zero and the standards evolving in that space basically say companies need to be accountable for that whole footprint. And when we talk about net zero, we talk about reducing that whole footprint and then only offsetting through carbon offsets a very small amount. So I think it's a 10% residual emissions is what the current standard is aiming for. So currently companies are offsetting, much more than that. So it's a journey. That's the other important thing I wanted to mention. Net zero is very much a journey, uncharted territory. And at VMware, we really care about taking action now, which is why we've had this commitment to carbon neutrality and followed the standards that were published many years ago. And then most recently with our 2030 agenda, committed to net zero by 2030.
So, and I think that that's important because really it's kind of that step one to achieving net zero. Because when I'm looking at it from the outside in, it almost seems like this insurmountable task of how does an organization, how does a company achieve this? But I think you highlighted some of the key notes on what that journey needs to look like as an organization. And really it starts with that commitment. It starts with that accountability, putting eyes on here is what our goals are. And even though that they might shift and standards might shift, we are aligning toward building that better future.
That's exactly right. And I would just mention that foundational to our net zero goal, which also gave us made us comfortable, I would say, in stating that goal, were our science-based targets. Mm-hmm. So I like where you were going, which was that I feel like there's been a shift in, for example, goal setting, where in the past companies needed to know exactly how they were going to get there in order to set a target, because they knew they were going to be held accountable, and that was the way it was done. Well, today, none of us know how we're going to get there. And that was very much a part of our story when, speaking to the executives and senior leadership about our science-based targets, was that it's a different goal, it's a different mindset. And first of all, we can't get there alone. And it'll require a lot of partnership. It'll require other industries doing their part. So yeah, it's kind of a new way of doing business and setting goals.
Well, I heard a lot of very interesting things there, and a couple of things I want to dive into a little bit more. But I'm going to back out just a little bit and maybe ask Lisa this question here. And Lisa, I know you're coming at us, the director of product management here at Veritas. So from that technology perspective, that rich technology expertise, what should technology companies be doing to approach kind of this net zero, or really just to approach building a better future?
Yeah, there's so much, and I really like where Natasha was going, because you can't necessarily boil the ocean. It becomes overwhelming. You have to start somewhere. And there's a lot of great examples. VMware is one themselves, and other great technology companies out there where you just have to pick up and really start somewhere. And now they have pretty aggressive targets and have progressed really far. I'd like to kind of take this back, to what we're doing in Veritas as well as a technology company, right? So I think Natasha may talk more about those science-based targets, but we've set some pretty aggressive ones too. Things like our Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions reducing by 25% by 2025, right? But we're well on the way. So then to your question, how are we getting there? And it's things like taking a look at our technical operations. Where are our data centers? Are they in the most efficient places? The data centers that we run, are we using renewable energy? I mean, this is not rocket science, right? It's hard to do, but it's not rocket science. And then making those changes. E-waste programs, we're a technology company, and that's the backbone of how our folks work as well. And so having those programs where we recycle our own usage with our partners. But I want to point out something else too, because I work in product. So I also get up every day and say, what are we building for our customers, right? And do we have responsibility, not just to like give them a great feature that works really, really great, but are we in a space where it's like, oh, what we're giving them can also help with sustainability? So I don't want to promote all of Veritas products, but we work on that too. Things like we are a data management or data protection company. We're protecting some of the most critical data in the world, and we have technology and are making technology that helps our customers reduce that footprint. Deduping your storage and a 95% reduction in your storage footprint, then there results in a reduction in power and consumption and your footprint. Things like being smart about how our platforms run and only using compute that you need when you need it. I mean, all of these things in the end, they add up for a technology company. So
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and it makes me harken back to when I first started at Veritas, because that was always kind of the mission. That was the conversation that I was constantly having with customers. Is, you know, how do we reduce? We have so much data now. All of us, even our smartphones, we just getting larger and larger and larger. But what are we doing on intelligent deletion? What are we doing to simplify? What are we doing to reduce? And so I think that those are all good points that bring us back on track. But Natasha, I want to bring back up what you had just said when we were talking about this, and really it was around building those partnerships. And I'm trying to think this through too, because if we're technology companies, there's what Veritas does can help reduce a ton. But of course, when we're trying to angle toward net zero carbon emissions, we have to be cognizant of our partnerships. We have to be cognizant of our suppliers. So how do we build better partnerships, or how do we align to those goals with our partners and with other vendors on the supply chain that we interact with?
Sure. And first, I just want to echo what Lisa said. I mean, that is so critical to first reduce your own footprint. And I know you said it's not rocket science, but I'm not sure that everyone is doing it. So, and it's also where we believe at VMware as well that we can have the biggest impact actually is through creating efficient IT infrastructure for our customers. So that's a huge deal. It's a huge space. It's growing, you know, leaps and bounds without us really focusing on it. So in terms of energy consumption, so super important. And again, like we're partnered with Veritas in different ways. So speaking of partnership, when it comes to our suppliers, I think more and more companies are realizing that a huge part of our footprint is related to our supply chain. And what that means is, you know, the goods and services that we purchase. So it makes up, I forget the exact number now, but I want to say 60% of VMware's footprint. And so in order for us to address that, we needed to really figure out how to engage suppliers in a meaningful way. So not, for example, at least not initially saying, hey, we're not going to do business with you unless you're doing X, Y, and Z. Instead, given that we've been on this journey, we know it takes resources, we know it takes knowledge transfer and understanding all of these, you know, new things, potentially GHG inventory, greenhouse gas inventory, your footprint, et cetera. We decided to really work closely with our suppliers to bring them along for those, for example, who have not. So similar to Veritas, we have set one of our science-based targets to work with our suppliers in setting their own science-based targets. And what that indicates is that we need to bring everyone along. We cannot get there without them coming along. Otherwise, like I said, you decide not to do business with folks, but that's not how we're approaching it. So we actually, and when I say we, our responsible sourcing team was launched last year, or our responsible sourcing program, and they've been on fire, frankly. They're just doing amazing work and moving very quickly. For example, quicker than I could do it in my role. So having the function in the right function, or the goal in the right function, is critical. And we've piloted some really like webinars and courses and how we could bring suppliers along with 15 suppliers this year, ranging from small to large to resourced to less resourced. And that's just been hugely illuminating. And we're super excited about really collaborating with our suppliers to share the knowledge. I mean, many of us are doing this. The two companies on this call are doing the same thing. And we don't want to reinvent the wheel and create the same resources for all of our suppliers. So
no, that's really cool. And that's a good segue too, that it kind of creates that ripple effect. And that's what I have to mention, that Veritas and VMware have been partners we are very close to hitting that 20-year partnership. So it's been great over that time frame. There's been a ton of innovation on both sides of the coin. And I know Lisa's mentioned a lot of that around innovation and data protection, operational simplicity, resilience, cyber protection. All of those have huge impacts in what we're talking about as far as reduction. But I guess I'm curious more so from an individual perspective. We've got individuals on the call that are contributors at their organizations. What can someone do on an individual level to champion these initiatives with their senior leadership? And Natasha, I'll throw that over to you.
Sure, I'll start. So what I would say is yes, senior leadership is very, very important. It really helps to have pressure from senior leadership. So what we did is our 2030 agenda, which is 30 goals across the company that we announced in late 2020. That was actually a sort of a grounds up movement, which was great. The goals were created with the functional teams, so really well understood and clear to those teams that we're actually going to be executing. And then we sort of, came from the top down as well and went to our CEO, got sign off there on the goals, and then have created what we call the ESG Leadership Council. And those are all of the senior leaders that are responsible for the different functions that have those goals underneath them. And they are now accountable for those goals. And we have even made a lot of progress in connecting this work to executive compensation, which is really the ticket, because when it makes up part of your bonus, it really matters, and it certainly stays top of mind. So that's something we've been working to do and get more of that included in that, in that compensation. And the other thing I would say is we've implemented what are called OKRs. So those are objectives and key results. And it's sort of a new way, maybe new, it's not new, it's new to us, in terms of managing goals and objectives. And it's very outcome focused. It's a quarterly update. So we're excited about those. And the way that it works is that it really allows you to ladder up in the organization and to see, how someone at, a more, junior level is contributing to something that is actually on the radar and on the OKR list for a senior executive. So yeah, those are some of the things we've been doing.
That's really cool. And it's true when it affects your wallet, it just makes things a little bit more top of mind. And that's always been interesting to me too, is organizations, companies that align to sustainability or building a sustainable future tend to have a lot of benefits from a revenue perspective as well. So to me, it's always interesting when we don't align to revenue directly, we somehow end up getting to revenue on the backside. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. But I do want to bring up a question from the chat. Is the working from home can be a step toward a sustainable future? What are Veritas views about it? I mean, you're talking to 2 of 3 of us are Veritas employees, and I'm not in a Veritas office. Lisa, I don't think you're in a Veritas office currently. But it is true that, technology has been that catalyst toward reduction. And we saw that during the pandemic, how we were able to unify and come together virtually through the use of technology. So Lisa, anything else to add there, or anything that you want to say about Veritas's views on working from home? Because I think that's an excellent point to kind of the bigger conversation that we're having here.
No, I think it's having an organization that's supportive of that, puts the right tools in place, the team environment that allows you to collaborate. But absolutely right, it does affect sustainability straight down to your carbon footprint and your emissions. I mean, we see that in our own report from 2021 that I think you're going to show people or give people a link to, right? That that does have a big impact on the environment. So, you know, we had to put all of that in place, right, to make that work for our employees. But it's been going well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why we have to redefine our barometer. Everything is shifting. Technology is driving innovation faster than it ever has before. So we have to constantly redefine where we are and how we can use technology to really drive forward to the future. So with that, but before we wrap up, I do want to mention some of those articles. Lisa, I know you were just talking about one, but one that I want to bring up specifically, Natasha, I thought it was really cool that VMware topped the list for Just Capital's top 10 companies for the environment. So a huge congratulations there. I know you can't see everybody on the other side of the call, but everybody is giving you a standing ovation. That's fantastic. I know how hard you drove this initiative with VMware, so it is really cool to see them on the top of the list.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always great to get that recognition. We were actually ranked #1, which is in our industry, which is fantastic. So yes, very proud of that.
And I'm excited to see that the ripple effect that has for other individuals, for partnerships like Veritas or other technology companies that can see what you did and redefine what good means. And with that, I would encourage everybody out there to read what the other 9 greenest large companies of 2022 are doing to improve their environmental impact. We're going to link the article in the comments. We're going to link all of the articles in the comments if you want to check it out. And Veritas as well. Lisa, I know you mentioned it. We're on our way with our own sustainable development goals, our science-based targets. So see what we're doing around greenhouse gas emissions, what we're doing to reduce. Checking out that link in the comments again. I think accountability drives a lot of what we're doing. Finally, VMware announced their intent to achieve net zero carbon emissions for operations and supply chain. They published an article on Zero Carbon Committed Initiative on VMware News. I would recommend everybody check that out. There's also a few VMware ESG links that I think are going to be really pertinent as you take to heart kind of the conversation that we've had here, as you try to redefine what good means like to you. I think all of these are going to be wonderful resources to put you on your way and help educate you as to what some of the largest, some of the best companies in the world are doing to achieve
Johnny,
a more sustainable future.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention regarding the Zero Carbon Committed, I'm glad that you highlighted that, because that is about supporting our partners in finding clouds that are committed to renewable energy, or cloud providers. So it's just another example of partnership and how we can sort of make that visible and accessible for our customers.
Yeah, well said. All right, well, we're gonna land this plane. I wanna thank everybody out there for your participation. Thank you for making my first run as a host so great. Natasha, Lisa, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to continuing these conversations. We wanna hear from you also. We're sharing a poll to see what you wanna hear about most in this upcoming season of Veritas Live. We shared a few options that we're considering, but again, you guys have a rich perspective. You guys are the subject matter experts. We want to hear what is relevant to you. What do you want us to dissect? What do you want us to dig into? Again, Lisa, Natasha, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciated the conversation. I feel like I have a lot to go back, a lot to dissect, and a lot to learn from, so really appreciate it.
Thank you, Johnny.
With that, thank you for being with us today. I hope you have a great one, great afternoon, great morning, great evening, wherever you are in the world. Have a good one. We will see you next time. Goodbye.